Hey everyone. When we look at plants, we tend to see them as, well, pretty still, right? But what if I told you that inside there's this insane logistical operation happening around the clock? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the incredible way plants move their food around. It's a process called translocation. Okay, so let's jump right into the big question. Picture this, a giant tree, right? Its leaves are way up there, maybe 100 feet in the air, soaking up the sun. But its roots? They're buried deep down in the pitch-black soil. So the kitchen is on the top floor, making all the food, but the workers are way down in the basement. How does that energy get from the treetop all the way down to the roots? And this isn't just some minor detail, It's a massive energy challenge. It's a problem that every single plant has to solve if it wants to live and grow. So here's the deal. The leaves are basically the solar-powered sugar factories. They're just cranking out energy all day long using photosynthesis. But here's the catch. Every single part of the plant, from the tiniest little root hair to the brand new bud at the top, needs that energy to survive. And they can't make it themselves, so it has to be delivered. So how in the world do they pull it off? Well, plants came up with this brilliant solution, a dedicated internal food delivery superhighway called the Phloem. All right, let's take a closer look at how this thing actually works. If you look at the whole plant, you can see the basic idea. Sugar made in the leaves travels down through the stem. But let's zoom in. A cross-section of that stem shows us the phloem tissue. And if we go even deeper, you see these amazing specialized cells. You've got these long sieve tubes that form a pipeline, and they have these little helper cells called companion cells that basically manage the whole process. It's just this incredible living pipeline in action.
And this whole amazing delivery process, it actually has a name, translocation. Specifically, it's the movement of sugars like sucrose and other building blocks like amino acids through the phloem. But the direction it all flows in isn't random at all. It follows a very specific rule.
Yeah, this entire super complex network runs on one, and I mean one, beautifully simple principle. You could think of it as the golden rule of how a plant's entire internal economy works, the source-to-sink principle. Okay, first up, you've got the source. A source is basically any part of the plant that's making and exporting energy. The classic example? A big old leaf soaking up the sun, working hard to produce tons of sugar. That's your factory. And on the other end, you have the sink. A sink is any part of the plant that needs to import that energy. It might use it right away for growth, or it might just store it for later. So think of roots, or fruits that are growing, or the very tips of new shoots. These are the customers.
So this is the big takeaway, the one thing to remember. Food in the phloem always moves from a source to a sink, always, from the producer to the consumer. That one simple rule dictates everything. But, and this is where it gets really cool, these jobs of source and sink aren't set in stone. Nope, they can completely flip depending on the time of year and what the plant needs. It's a super dynamic system that's constantly adapting to the seasons.
So let's just quickly map this out over a year. In summer, it's pretty straightforward. The leaves are the source, the roots are the sink. But then winter comes and bam, the roles totally reverse and the roots become the source. And that carries into spring where the roots stay as the source to power all that new growth. All right, let's dive into summer. The sun's high, the days are long, the leaves are just powerhouses, right? They're the undisputed source making way more sugar than they need. And all that extra sugar? It gets shipped downstairs to the roots, which act as the sink, just busily packing it all away as starch for later. Okay, that all makes perfect sense when the sun's out. But what happens when winter hits? When all those leaves are gone and the sugar factories are closed for the season? How does the plant even survive? This is where the genius of the system really shines. The plant does a complete role reversal. In winter, the roots stop being the storage unit and become the source. They start breaking down all that starch they saved up, turning it back into sugar, and sending it out to keep the rest of the plant alive. Then, when spring starts to hit, the roots go into overdrive, pumping all that stored energy upwards to fuel the explosive growth of new leaves and shoots, which are, of course, the new sinks.
Now, it's really important to remember that this food highway, the phloem, it's only half the story. It's just one part of the plant's amazing internal plumbing system. It works right alongside another system that's just as important.
So let's put them side by side. You've got the phloem, which we've been talking about, and it's like this flexible two-way food delivery superhighway. It can change direction whenever it needs to. And then you've got its partner, the xylem. Think of it more like a one-way water pipeline. Simple and direct.
Let's break down the key differences here. The xylem, its job is moving water and minerals, and it only goes one way, up from the roots to the rest of the plant, and it's made of dead cells that are basically just hollow tubes. The phloem, on the other hand, is moving the good stuff, the sugars and amino acids, and it can go in any direction, from source to sink, wherever that might be, and its cells are alive. They have to be to manage this whole complicated process.
So, what's the bottom line here? It's that plants are just incredible engineers. They've developed two totally separate, super specialized systems running side by side, one for water, one for food. Each one is perfectly designed for its job. So the next time you look at a tree or a flower, don't just see a static object. See this incredibly dynamic energy grid, an intelligent system that's constantly rerouting power based on supply and demand, changing with the seasons. It really makes you wonder, right? As we're trying to build our own smart energy grids, what else could we learn from the quiet genius of the plant world?